The tea house hidden in the mist. Halfway up the mountain path above the village of Pinecrest stood a small wooden tea house that most visitors only ever found by accident, tucked into a fold of the hillside where the mist seemed to gather thicker than anywhere else on the mountain, curling low around its sloped roof and its single lantern by the door. May had kept the tea house for nearly 16 years, ever since her grandmother had grown too tired to climb the mountain path each morning, and she had long since come to believe, the way her grandmother always had, that the little house only properly showed itself on days exactly like this one, when the mist rolled in thick enough to hide the whole mountainside from anyone not already looking for it. Today, the mist had settled in early, drifting up from the valley below some time before dawn and thickening steadily through the morning until the whole mountain seemed wrapped in soft, damp cotton, the pines along the path fading in and out of visibility depending on how the low clouds happened to be moving. May had felt it building the way she always did, some old instinct passed down along with the tea house itself, and had spent the morning readying the place for it without quite admitting to herself what she was doing, filling the old iron kettle, arranging fresh cushions around the low table by the window, setting out the good ceramic cups rather than the everyday ones. By midday, a light rain had begun weaving itself into the mist, fine and steady, more a suspended dampness in the air than proper falling rain, and May stood a moment at the open doorway watching it settle over the mountainside, feeling the same small anticipatory lift she always felt on days like this. The tea house around her held its usual quiet order, low wooden shelves lined with tea tins of every size, a small charcoal brazier in the corner for the kettle, cushions and low tables arranged with the unhurried logic of a room built for lingering rather than hurrying through. The mist thickened steadily through the early afternoon, pressing close against the tea house's paper windows, and May moved through her usual misty day rituals with the same practiced calm she always carried on days like this, lighting the small oil lamp that hung above the low table, even though the paper windows still let through a soft, diffused daylight, setting the kettle over the brazier's low coals, laying out a second cushion, more out of habit than any real expectation that someone might actually find their way up the mountain path in weather like this. The mountainside beyond the window had gone entirely soft and formless, the pines nearest the tea house barely more than gray suggestions against the thicker gray beyond them, and May stood a moment longer at the doorway, listening to the particular hush that always settled over the mountain on days exactly like this one. Birds gone quiet, the whole slope seeming to hold its breath inside the mist's soft, close embrace. The small wind chime by the door rang for the first time a little after 1, stirred by a visitor's careful step on the wooden porch rather than any real wind, and old Master Feng emerged from the mist, shaking the damp from his wide straw hat before ducking inside. He came up the mountain most misty days, had done so for as long as May could remember, settling into the same worn cushion by the window with the particular contentment of a man who had been climbing this same path for longer than she had been alive. She brought him his usual pu'er without needing to ask, and he thanked her the same quiet way he always did, already turning his attention to the soft gray nothing beyond the glass. More visitors found their way up through the mist as the afternoon wore on, each one emerging almost magically from the gray, greeted the way old friends are, with a small nod, a familiar cushion remembered without needing to be pointed out twice. There was Lien, a young painter from the village who came up most misty afternoons to sketch the tea house's soft, half-visible shapes, always ordering the same jasmine tea and staying long after her sketchbook had filled. There was a quiet young man named Haru, new to the mountain, who had stumbled onto the tea house purely by accident some weeks ago, and had taken since then to finding his way back up whenever the mist rolled in thick, drawn by something in the place he couldn't quite name even to himself. The tea house filled slowly but steadily through the afternoon, never crowded exactly, but pleasantly full of quiet movement and low conversation, the soft hiss of the kettle mixing easily with the mist's silent, pressing hush, and the occasional gentle chime of the wind bell announcing someone new emerging from the gray. May moved between the low tables with the unhurried efficiency of someone entirely at home in her own small, misty kingdom, pouring tea, trimming the lamp's wick, pausing here and there for a few quiet words with a regular before returning to her own small tasks behind the brazier. This, she often thought on afternoons exactly like this one, was the whole reason she'd never once regretted staying on the mountain to take over the tea house from her grandmother, despite the long climb each morning and the particular solitude of a life spent mostly among mist and pine trees. There was something deeply satisfying about a room full of people choosing, of their own accord, to climb an entire mountain path through fog and light rain to spend an afternoon exactly here, surrounded by warmth and slow tea and the particular unhurried company of people who had found, somehow, their way through the mist to find it. It was while reorganizing the tea tins on the lowest shelf that May's hand brushed against something tucked far back in the corner, behind a tin of old dried chrysanthemum blossoms she rarely used anymore. She drew it out carefully and found a small cloth-wrapped notebook, its cover faded to a soft, indeterminate grey-green, clearly her grandmother's, clearly forgotten back there for years, tucked away and never quite gotten around to being properly sorted. She opened it carefully, settling onto her own cushion while the mist pressed close against the paper windows, and found her grandmother's familiar brushstroke handwriting filling page after page, notes on tea preparation and seasonal blends, each one annotated with the particular confidence of someone who had spent decades learning exactly how each variety responded to mist, to rain, to the particular dampness of a mountain afternoon. Near the very back, tucked between two blank pages, May found a small folded note in the same careful hand, addressed simply to "Whoever keeps this house after me." She unfolded it slowly, feeling something warm and unexpected rise in her chest, and read her grandmother's words for what she realized, with a small jolt, must have been the very first time. A short, plainly written note explaining that the tea house had never really been about the tea itself, not entirely, but about giving people somewhere soft and hidden to come sit a while, whatever fog happened to be sitting over their own lives that particular day, weather or otherwise. Only the ones who need it most ever find the path on a misty day, the note ended. Let them stay as long as the mist holds. It always lifts eventually. May read it twice, eyes stinging faintly, before folding it carefully back along its original crease and tucking it into her sleeve, deciding it would stay there now, close at hand, on every misty afternoon from here forward. The afternoon wore on unhurried, the mist never once threatening to lift, and May found herself falling into the particular easy rhythm that only ever showed up on days exactly like this one. a rhythm built less around busyness and more around simple, steady presence, moving between low tables, refilling cups, trading a few quiet words here and there, letting the tea house's soft, warm hush carry everyone gently along together. Haru sat quietly by the far wall for most of the afternoon, sketchbook untouched on his lap, seeming content simply to sit inside the tea house's particular warmth without needing to fill the time with anything at all. May brought him a fresh pot of tea unasked sometime around 3, and he thanked her with the same quiet, grateful nod he always gave, before admitting, a little hesitantly, that he came up on misty days mostly because the fog made the rest of the world feel pleasantly far away, and this was the one place on the whole mountain where that particular far-away feeling turned into something warm rather than lonely. Leanne finished a sketch sometime around 4, turning her sketchbook to show May the soft, half-formed lines of the tea house's sloped roof dissolving into fog, and the two of them admired it a while together, Leanne explaining how she'd tried this time to capture the particular quality of light that only ever showed up when mist and lamplight met somewhere in the middle. Old Master Feng listened from his cushion with evident approval, offering a quiet observation about how the mountain had looked exactly the same, in his opinion, for the entire 60 years he'd been climbing up to see it. Outside, the mist had thickened further as the afternoon aged towards evening, the light beyond the paper windows dimming from pale grey to something deeper and more textured, and May felt, watching it all through the window's soft glow, the particular contentment that only ever arrived on days like this one. A small room full of people she genuinely cared about, gathered together in the one warm, lit place on an entire mountainside otherwise lost to fog. She began preparing a fresh brazier of coals a little before 5, moving quietly among her guests, half listening to old Master Feng recount some old mountain legend about the mist itself, the story growing a little more elaborate with each retelling, though nobody seemed to mind. Reaching for a fresh bundle of charcoal in the storage alcove, her fingers found instead a small, faded photograph tucked behind a stack of spare cushions, curling slightly at the corners, clearly forgotten there for years. It showed her grandmother, decades younger, sitting cross-legged by this same low table on some long-ago misty afternoon, sleeves dusted with tea leaves, laughing at whoever held the camera, the tea house behind her recognizably the same and yet subtly different cushions, a different lantern by the door, but the same warm, crowded, mist-softened feeling filling every corner of the frame. On the back, in the same careful hand as the notebook, someone had written only, "Best kind of day. Full house, thick mist, everyone who needed to find the path finding it anyway." May propped the photograph against the tea tins on the shelf, facing out into the room, deciding it belonged there now among the tea house's other small, quiet treasures, and went back to her preparations with a private smile, feeling, not for the first time this particular afternoon, the strange comfort of sitting in exactly the same spot her grandmother once had, on a day that felt, in all the ways that mattered, remarkably similar. Sometime around 6, the light rain woven through the mist thickened further, drumming softly now against the tea house's sloped roof, and a low roll of thunder moved somewhere far below in the valley, muffled almost entirely by the thick blanket of fog between the tea house and the lowlands, more felt as a distant pressure than properly heard. The small group inside glanced toward the window at once, the way people who have weathered plenty of mountain weather together tend to, sharing a brief, knowing look before returning easily to their unhurried conversations. The wind stirred somewhere higher up the slope, sending fresh curls of mist pressing against the paper windows, and a gust rattled the small wind chime by the door with a fuller, more insistent chime than its usual gentle stirring. May moved to check the storm shutters folded back against the outer wall, an old habit from 16 years of exactly these evenings, and glanced out at the mountain path, finding it entirely swallowed now by fog and dusk together, utterly impassable to anyone not already safely inside. "No one else finding their way up tonight, I think," old Master Fang observed, without any particular concern, settling deeper into his cushion, and May nodded, already moving to add fresh coals to the brazier, feeling the particular satisfaction of a keeper whose small, warm kingdom was once again exactly where everyone wanted to be on a night like this. She kept the tea house lit and warm well past her usual closing hour, official time meaning very little on a night like this when the mist itself had effectively closed the mountain path to anyone new, and May had long ago decided that a full house on a proper misty evening was worth far more than any strict schedule. She refilled teapots, offered fresh cushions to anyone who wanted one, and let the evening simply continue at its own unhurried pace, the light rain drumming soft and full against the roof, the warm hum of quiet conversation filling every corner of the small room. Old Master Feng finally rose sometime around 7, gathering his straw hat with obvious reluctance, and paused at the door to thank May the same quiet way he always did, adding this time a small unexpected comment about how much the tea house had always reminded him of his own teacher's small mountain hut decades ago, though he never did explain further, simply nodding once and stepping out into the mist with the particular confidence of a man who knew this path better than his own hands. Lien and Haru lingered a while longer, the two of them settling into one of those easy, meandering conversations that seemed built specifically for misty evenings with nowhere else to be, and May let them stay, moving quietly around them, banking the evening's affairs towards their close without any particular hurry to usher anyone out. Lien finally packed away her sketchbook a little after 8, and Haru rose to walk her part way down the mountain, the two of them making their unhurried goodnights with a warmth that suggested this particular friendship, born entirely of shared misty afternoons, had a good deal further to go yet. The tea house slowly emptied out the way it always eventually did, no matter how thick the fog outside. May stood a moment in the sudden quiet once the door had finally properly closed behind the last of them, listening to the light rain's soft rhythm against the roof, the low hiss of the brazier's coals settling, the particular hush that only ever arrived after a full, warm evening had wound gently to its close. She began the last small tasks of closing with the same unhurried care she carried through everything else, banking the coals low, folding the spare cushions, letting the day's accumulated small satisfactions settle properly into her tired shoulders. With the tea house finally quiet and the shutters drawn against the damp evening air, May made her way to the small sleeping quarters behind the main room, the same low space her grandmother had slept in for decades before her, its single low bed and small shelf of belongings familiar enough by now to navigate easily even in the dim evening light. The rain sounded different back here, closer somehow, drumming directly against the wooden roof rather than filtered through the paper windows out front, a fuller, more intimate sound that May had come over the years to find deeply comforting. She made herself a final small pot of tea from the good pu'er old Master Fang always favored, carrying it to the low stool by her own small window, and sat a while simply listening to the mist and rain together outside, feeling the particular satisfaction of a long, full day finally winding down toward its close. Her grandmother's notebook and the small folded note sat on the shelf beside her, along with the old photograph she'd found tucked behind the spare cushions, and she found herself paging through the notebook again, slowly, in no hurry at all, reading her grandmother's careful handwritten notes by the low lamplight. Near the middle of the notebook, tucked between a page of instructions for brewing tea in heavy fog and one about which blends best suited a cold mountain evening, May found another folded note she hadn't noticed earlier, shorter than the first, written in the same careful hand. It read simply, "Some days this house does more good than any of us realize. You never know who needed somewhere hidden to sit today. Keep the lantern lit as long as the mist holds." May read it twice, thinking of Haru's quiet admission about the mist making loneliness feel warm instead of cold, of Lian's careful sketches, of old Master Feng's 60 years of climbing this same path, and felt, reading it, a quiet certainty that her grandmother had somehow already known exactly the kind of evening this would turn out to be, decades before it happened. She set the notebook down carefully, tea cooling now to its perfect drinking temperature, and let herself simply sit a while longer, listening to the rain's steady rhythm against the roof, feeling entirely uncomplicatedly grateful for the small, warm kingdom she'd been trusted with, for the grandmother who had built its rhythms long before her, for the particular. With the tea house finally quiet and the shutters drawn against the damp evening air, May made her way to the small sleeping quarters behind the main room, the same low space her grandmother had slept in for decades before her, its single low bed and small shelf of belongings familiar enough by now to navigate easily, even in the dim evening light. The rain sounded different back here, closer somehow, drumming directly against the wooden roof rather than filtered through the paper windows out front, a fuller, more intimate sound that May had come over the years to find deeply comforting. She made herself a final small pot of tea from the good pu'er old Master Feng always favored, carrying it to the low stool by her own small window, and sat a while simply listening to the mist and rain together outside, feeling the particular satisfaction of a long, full day finally winding down toward its close. Her grandmother's notebook and the small folded note sat on the shelf beside her, along with the old photograph she'd found tucked behind the spare cushions, and she found herself paging through the notebook again, slowly, in no hurry at all, reading her grandmother's careful handwritten notes by the low lamplight. Near the middle of the notebook, tucked between a page of instructions for brewing tea in heavy fog and one about which blends best suited a cold mountain evening, May found another folded note she hadn't noticed earlier, shorter than the first, written in the same careful hand. It read simply, "Some days this house does more good than any of us realize. You never know who needed somewhere hidden to sit today. Keep the lantern lit as long as the mist holds." May read it twice, thinking of Haru's quiet admission about the mist making loneliness feel warm instead of cold, of Lian's careful sketches, of old Master Feng's 60 years of climbing this same path, and felt, reading it, a quiet certainty that her grandmother had somehow already known exactly the kind of evening this would turn out to be, decades before it happened. She set the notebook down carefully, tea cooling now to its perfect drinking temperature, and let herself simply sit a while longer, listening to the rain's steady rhythm against the roof, feeling entirely uncomplicatedly grateful for the small, warm kingdom she'd been trusted with, for the grandmother who had built its rhythms long before her, for the particular quiet purpose of keeping a lantern lit on days exactly like this one.
The mist and rain outside showed no sign of easing as the evening wore fully into night, the wind stirring occasionally against the wooden shutters, the rain settling into that full, unhurried percussion that May loved best of all, steady and constant enough to eventually stop noticing as separate from silence itself. She finished her tea slowly, refilling it once from the small pot, and let her thoughts wander the way they always did on nights like this, unhurried, drifting easily between memory and simple present comfort. She thought of her grandmother, gone now nearly 5 years, and found that the grief of it had settled over time into something gentler than it once was, less a sharp absence and more a kind of ongoing presence, felt most clearly in exactly moments like this one, tea in hand, rain against the roof, the whole small tea house humming quietly with the accumulated warmth of everyone who had ever climbed the mountain path to sit through a misty afternoon inside it. She thought too of her own eventual successor, years or decades from now perhaps, finding this same notebook tucked behind some future version of the dried chrysanthemum tin, adding their own careful notes in the margins, leaving their own folded note near the back for whoever came next. The thought didn't feel sad so much as it felt right, part of some much longer, gentler story that the tea house itself seemed to be quietly telling, one misty afternoon at a time. Eventually, tea finished and the evening's last small satisfactions properly settled, May rose to prepare for sleep, moving through the familiar small tasks of her quarters with the same unhurried care she carried through everything else on nights like this. She changed into soft, worn sleep clothes and paused a moment at her own tired reflection in the small, polished bronze mirror on the shelf, thinking, as she often did back here, that she looked a little more like her grandmother each year, something about the particular tiredness the tea house always left behind, a good tiredness, the kind earned rather than simply endured. She set the notebook and the small folded notes carefully on the shelf beside her low bed, along with the old photograph propped against the lamp, and settled beneath the thick quilted blanket with the rain's steady rhythm filling the small dark room, drumming against the roof directly above her in a sound she had long ago stopped finding anything but deeply comforting.
She lay a while listening, the way she always did on nights exactly like this one, to the rain against the roof, to the old wooden building's familiar creaks as it settled around her, to the wind's occasional soft stirring against the shutters. Out front, she knew without needing to check, the tea house sat quiet and dark, cushions folded, the lantern by the door dimmed for the night, waiting for morning the way it always was, the way it had been waiting, in one form or another, for decades before she'd ever taken it over herself. The mind does a curious thing on the edge of sleep, especially on a night wrapped so thoroughly in mist. It stops sorting so carefully between what is remembered and what is only imagined, and lets the two drift together into something softer than either. May lay with eyes closed, not quite asleep, thoughts moving without any real steering, the way steam rises slowly off a fresh pot of tea, carried along by whatever current happened to be running beneath it. She thought she heard, very faintly, beneath the rain, her grandmother's voice again. Not words exactly, just the warm, unhurried cadence she'd always used explaining some small detail of the craft, patient and certain, the specific tone reserved for teaching someone the parts of tea-making that never quite made it into any book. She thought of the photograph propped against her lamp, her grandmother decades younger, laughing by this same low table on some long ago misty afternoon, and in her half-dream the two evenings seemed to blur gently together,
her grandmother's crowded, mist-softened tea house folding easily into her own, as though the same warm lantern light had simply been passing uninterrupted across all these years. The wind moved against the shutters, and in her drifting mind it became, briefly, the sound of the small wind chime by the door, ringing for one more late visitor emerging from the fog, before she remembered, in the loose logic of half-sleep, that the tea-house was closed now, dark and quiet out front, and that the sound was only wind, only rain, only the old building settling into its own long night, the same as she was settling into hers. Somewhere out front, she imagined she could feel the whole small tea-house breathing gently around her, full of the accumulated warmth of everyone who had climbed the mountain to sit inside it that day. Old Master Feng's pu'er, Lian's careful sketches, Haru's quiet gratitude for a warm, found place, all of it settled now into the walls themselves, the way good days always seem to, and May felt herself smile faintly in the dark, eyes still closed, feeling entirely, weightlessly content. Tomorrow existed only in the vaguest terms now. The tea tins that would need restocking, the cushions that would need airing, whatever weather the morning happened to bring, mist or clear, quiet or full. None of it pulled at her the way tasks so often did on ordinary days, demanding speed, demanding urgency. Tonight, everything could simply wait its turn, unhurried, the way the rain was unhurried, the way the tea house itself had always been unhurried, patient through 16 years and decades more before that, waiting faithfully for whoever needed somewhere hidden to sit out their particular storm. The rain went on. The old tea house held, the way it had always held, through this storm and every storm before it, and somewhere under that steady sound, May's breathing slowed further still, and further, until it too had settled fully into the storm's own patient rhythm, indistinguishable from the rest. Later, though later meant very little on a night like this, stretched and formless as it was, the rain eased by slow degrees, its steady percussion softening into something closer to a whisper against the roof, gentle now, unhurried, as though the mountain itself had simply grown tired and settled in to rest alongside everyone it had passed over that night. Out front, the tea house sat dark and quiet, cushions folded neatly, the brazier's last embers fading slowly toward morning, the notebook's careful notes and the small folded messages waiting patiently on their shelf, ready for whoever needed them next, tonight or years from now. The little wind chime by the door hung still and silent, saving its ring for whoever the morning happened to bring up the mountain path. May slept the particular deep, dreamless sleep that only comes after a long, full day spent in good company, the kind of sleep the body simply surrenders to, without negotiation, without the usual restless surfacing that so often interrupts an ordinary night. Her breathing was slow and even, one hand resting near the small stack of her grandmother's letters and notes on the shelf beside her, the quilted blanket drawn up snug against the mountain's lingering chill.